Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Okay. You have a japa chanting machine? Turn it off. Okay, this is the topic. You can see the screen, okay? It's a little small, but you can see. 3 aspects of gratitude. This is a continuation from, when was it?
Just for the humility. It's like
Yeah, humility precedes gratitude and then comes gratitude. So, when? Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon. That was Sunday, right? Sunday afternoon, right? So, gratitude. Humility precedes gratitude. That is, capacity to receive some favor, good fortune, krita. And kritagya is feeling grateful or gratitude. Some time ago, somebody sent me a TED Talk by a Chinese fellow who works for Google. And he is a follower of Dalai Lama. But he said some things that are consistent for followers of Dalai Lama, but they're also consistent for followers of culture. And the kind of the punchline of his whole talk, he was using the word compassion instead of gratitude. But it's quite similar. And he now has a full-time job. He is an engineer by training, but he now has a full-time job with Google to teach his curriculum, to create the curriculum and teach it to Google employees on compassion. And one of the things that he was saying in the TED Talk is they want it because it's profitable. And he gave examples, this and that, the other example. And what makes something profitable is was part of a study, sociology and business combined study by a researcher named Jim Collins, he was commissioned to do some research on what makes good companies great. So he wrote a book, Good to Great. I haven't read the book, but I've heard of the book. And he was studying Fortune 500 companies, some number of them, and over a period of time, some became great, and what made them great in comparison to good. The others that remained good. Maybe some didn't remain good. But he was equating the Buddhist understanding or Dalai Lama understanding or the understanding of compassion, or in this case I'm just exchanging the word gratitude. This is taken from his TED Talk. When there's gratitude, there's some recognition of some kindness that's been received. Feelings connected to that kindness that's been received. And a motivational part. You want to do something for that person from whom something has been received. Maybe you remember yesterday, Sunday afternoon, was yesterday, that nice expression from Ramayana. I'll remind you. When Hanuman was crossing the sea and Mainaka arose from the sea, Mainaka requested, let me do some service. Can you please just, you have a long journey ahead of you, take some rest. And then he expressed why he was doing that. And it was out of gratitude. Kritagya, recognizing some favor that had performed to him or for him by Vayu, by Hanuman's father. It doesn't give the history, but the history is found elsewhere. There was a time when mountains could fly, they had wings. And Indra didn't like it, so he was chopping their wings with his thunderbolt. And Mainaka was protected by Vayu, said, take shelter of the sea, and his thunderbolts can't harm you. So Mainaka wanted to repay that kindness, or that favor received. And he was requested by Samudra, who wanted to repay an ancestor of Lord Ramachandra for whom Hanuman was in the service. And that kindness that Samudra received was Sagara, one of the ancestors of Lord Ram, expanded the field of the ocean when they were searching for the missing horse, the Ashwamedha Yagya horse. And then later, when Agastya was angry with the ocean, was drying up the ocean, Sagara filled up the ocean again. So Samudra was happy, having received a favor from Lord Ramachandra's ancestor, so he approached Mainaka, can you help me to repay this favor that I received? And he said, sure, I also would like to. So this is the three parts: a cognitive, affective, and motivational part, where one recognizes a kindness received, one has some feelings related to a kindness received, and one wants to do something in response to that person who extended some kindness. The verse in Ramayana is spoken by Mainaka, but it's a nice verse, where he says this Kritagya is the essence of Sanatana Dharma. Nice. And there's different ways of considering what that means. But there's a source of everything, and we're being sustained by that which is the source of everything, by everything. And so gratitude, or gratitude to our founder Acharya for crossing the sea and risking his life and extending the message of Krishna consciousness to the world. And recognizing, feeling, and wanting to repay is the feeling of gratitude. Here's the cognitive element. The hardest arithmetic to master is that which enables us to count our blessings. Now, this is a recent author. He's now deceased, but he won a Presidential Medal of Freedom, American fellow. Popular man and thoughtful man. That's just cognitive, recognizing blessings received. And then you add to the cognitive element, or when that cognitive element is absent, this is in the Sanatana Goswami's touchstone story. We all know the story. Yes? Yeah, we all know the story. Okay. The man, the poor Brahmin, didn't have an understanding of the value of the holy name. He had a financial problem, and he understood Sanatana Goswami may have the means to take care of my financial problem. He's very compassionate. He's very generous. If I ask him for his touchstone, maybe he'll give me his touchstone. And after receiving his touchstone, sure enough, when he went back to his home, base metal turned into gold. But then he was a Brahmana. He understood if he's got this in the rubbish pile, then he's got something more valuable. But he didn't know it was more valuable because he was interested in the material assets of life. So as one is not cognizant of the gift of the holy name or the value of the holy name. It's something like Shikshastaka, the first and the second verses. There's the list of what the holy name has to offer. But then, even one may be cognizant, Durdaivam Idirshi Mahajini Nanuraga, I don't have any anurag, any attraction. So, cognition is not enough. Something else is also required. Here's a nice verse from the 6th canto Bhagavatam, where the form of the name as being non-different than the person named is described. Shabda Brahma, Param Brahma, Mamobhe Shashvati Tanu. These two forms of mind, namely the transcendental sound and the eternal blissful spiritual form, are my eternal forms. They are not material. The spirit, Shabda Brahma and Para Brahma. Shabda Brahma, that's scripture, or mantra, or spiritual sound vibration. And that spiritual sound vibration is none different than the spiritual form. And elsewhere, there's the text in the Bhagavatam, Vachaka, it means that which denotes, and Vacha is denoted. So the scripture denotes the denoted. The scripture, the Shabda Brahma, denotes Parabrahma, but they're not different, they're actually forms of the same Supreme Person. Nice understanding. So that's a cognizant. I know somebody, you may also know somebody, I know somebody that somehow they have a kind of persistent, maybe even obsession that they want to see Krishna. They want to see Krishna. They want to be in that position of relationship with Krishna. And it's one of the persons I know has been going on since their childhood. And they're sad, and they're feeling something's missing. And when's it going to happen? And what do I need to do? And it's a genuine feeling. It's not just a silly something little boy might say or something like that. It's okay. He's okay. Let him rest. But it's been going on for this person's life. And it's as many times as I express that Vachaka is not different than Vacha, he wants the Vacha, he wants the denoted. And it's because one has to have qualification to see the spiritual form of the Lord. Then it's not going to happen until that connection is made. Transcendence is transcendence. You don't get a piece of transcendence and not the whole of transcendence. Transcendence is transcendence. So I from time to time, I remind him of this particular verse. Of course, this message, this particular scriptural message comes from, it's in the Bhagavatam. It's also mentioned in Rupa Goswami's Namastaka. It's also mentioned in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs, Vacha and Vachaka. So there's songs and there's our acharyas and there's scriptures that teach us these things. And somehow we're still distracted. It's air conditioning. But when the cognizant goes to the next step of what you feel when you recognize the kindness, even if don't have that full realization yet, but you have that appreciation, this kindness is being extended, although I don't have full realization of it yet, then one wants to do something with that feeling of gratitude. And we find in Queen Kunti's teachings, and we're going to go through a little bit of a story, a narration from Mahabharata, where she manifests all three of these features. And we're going to go to a nice situation where the Pandavas have been rescued by Vidura from the house of lack. And some things happened after that. They cross the river. They meet Rakshasa, and he's killed. Bhima then ends up marrying his daughter, etc. And they're not in exile, they're just hiding out, while Krishna has come to attend their funeral. Krishna and Balaram have come to attend their funeral. Although they're omniscient, they know that the Pandavas and Kunti have not died. Krishna comes to attend the funeral. So Krishna is in the area when this next event happens. The next event that happens is Vyasadeva, who acts as the guide and advisor of the Pandavas, suggests that they go to a particular place, Ekachakra, where they can remain unknown for some time, and the time will come when they can again let everybody know that they're not dead. So there's a Leela that's going to happen. So these are drawings taken from when Hridayananda Maharaj was preparing to make a translation of Mahabharata. They were prepared for him. So here's the 5 Pandavas appearing like Brahmanas entering Ekachakra. The text at the bottom of this illustration. The sage Vyasa takes the Pandavas to the city of Ekachakra, where, disguised as Brahmanas, they are to live until he returns. So he's got the clock, and they're just going to stay there till he returns. He departs, and they live as if they were Brahmanas by begging. So they have their begging bowl, and the personalities in Ekachakra are very happy to give in charity to these 5 powerful-looking Brahmanas. And in the course of time, the Kunti and the Pandavas were staying as guests in the home of a young Brahmin couple. They had 2 children, and as you know the story, so the story is there was a demon that made his residence not far from Ekachakra. What was the demon's name? Bakasura. 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 We're in agreement. But of course, it's a different Bakasura than the Bakasura that Krishna killed, but had the same name, Bakasura. And the villagers in Ekachakra made a truce with him. And periodically, once every whatever the period of time was, month or week or something, they would send a cartload of food for him, and drawn by a horse, and a volunteer to drive the horse and the cartload of food. And so Bakasura could then eat the cartload of food, and eat the horse, and eat the chariot driver. Then he would just leave them alone. He wouldn't, harass them. So on this particular cycle, when they were there, it was the opportunity. It's a very long discussion in Mahabharata, where each of the family members volunteers, I will go, I will go, I will go. And none of them wants the others to go because they're a very close family. And Kunti overhears this discussion. It's very detailed, very, very heart-touching. Ready to sacrifice, but then, knowing that that's going to leave others bereft, etc., etc. So she hears their conversation, and she approaches them and says, you have only 2 children, I have 5. Let me send one of my sons. And they said, no, you're our guest, we can't have that. And Kunti said, you don't understand my sons, especially this one. And he'll go and everything will be all right, I assure you. So, reluctantly, they accepted. And then Kunti discussed with Yudhisthira. Here's what Kunti's words, taken directly from. First she speaks to Bhima, She's asking Bhima, you be the one to go. A person's character is measured by his gratitude. Are you okay? Okay, good. A person's character is measured by his gratitude. When kindness is shown to a gentleman, he never forgets it, and he feels that he must do even more in return. Kunti to Bhima. And he accepts. I'm ready. So then she asks Yudhisthira, the elder brother, and her elder son. Here in this Brahmana's house we have been living very happily, and I have correctly concluded that we must do something for him in return. After all, a man is measured by his gratitude, that whatever is done for him is not forgotten. Same point, right? And then later, in the same section, I made up my mind to repay our debt to the learned Brahmana. With careful thought, I have determined our duty. There will be two purposes accomplished. We shall repay our stay at this house, and we shall perform an act of great piety. I have heard from authorities that a warrior who helps a Brahmana in his hour of need attains to the planets where the pious dwell. Performance of duty. Certainly that's a very significant message in Bhagavad Gita. Performance of duty and sin by not performance of duty. At 26 2nd Avenue on Saturday. That much I know. That was Saturday. The verse that I was supposed to speak on was 335 Bhagavad Gita, where it's the verse where Krishna says to Arjuna, better to perform your own duty, even faultily or with fault, than another's duty, even if performed perfectly, flawlessly. The whole section on the nature of duty and the role of performance of duty is to purify one. Purify one regardless of the outcome. So the karma yoga principle of you offer the results to Krishna, but supposing this or supposing that, supposing it's uncomfortable or supposing you're like really attached to doing something. There's the raga and dvesha. There's the attachment and there's the aversion. Krishna just got through saying, don't operate on the platform of attachment and aversion, because it's entangling and you'll lose the sense of the higher purpose of life. That's not the higher purpose of life. So do duty regardless of attachment or aversion. Let go of that. Just do your duty. So anyway, this sense of duty is very prominent, and it has its place in Vedic culture. Understanding what one's duty is, and without attachment to the results, offering the results to Krishna, and not being moved by attachment or aversion. Anyway, here's like the carrot. The carrot is you go to the planets where the pious dwell. That's attachment to piety for piety's sake, or for the fruits of piety's sake. Kunti is a pure devotee. She's not attached to going to heaven. It's one of the messages of Mahabharata. We're going to have to make a place on the couch for her. So let's do it again. There's the cognitive, there's the affective, and there's the motivational elements of gratitude. And Kunti is displaying here, instructing her sons to follow that principle. I have made up my mind to repay our debt to the learned Brahmana. With careful thought, I have determined our duty. And so we know how it comes out. Bhima goes, and Bhima defeats Bakasura, and everybody's happy, because Bhima had a big feast on the way. And then there's another very nice example. It's a little bit longer. This is, Monday night at the movies. This is narrations from Mahabharata that teach these lessons of gratitude. There's a very nice lesson of gratitude that comes in relation to Mayadanava. Now, Mayadanava, we're going to hear some more about who is he. Mayadanava. Back to Mahabharata, Draupadi, after the Pandavas left Ekachakra, because Vyasadeva came and said, okay, it's time to go, they were walking along the road, still incognito, dressed like brahmanas, and they saw a number of other brahmanas heading for a big festival. So they asked what the big festival was, and the big festival was the Swayamvar of Draupadi. And the Swayamvar of Draupadi was arranged purposefully so that Arjuna would get the hand of Draupadi. Because Drupada wanted his daughter to marry Arjuna. So you know the story. And there was a task that only Arjuna could accomplish. The fish on the other side of a disc that was moving, there's only a hole in the disc, and one has to look at the water below, and there's the reflection of the moving disc, and through the moving disc, the hole in the moving disc, shoot the eye of the fish. And no one could do it. None of the Kshatriyas, and there was discontent. And then came the Brahmanas. And well, Brahmanas can marry my daughter, so yeah, you can join the contest, and Arjuna was victorious. And when Arjuna was victorious, he took the hand of Draupadi and was ready to go, and the warriors had a big fight. So he, Arjuna, and Bhima, with his club, they held off everybody. The Battle of Kurukshetra, before the Battle of Kurukshetra. They didn't kill them, but they held them all off. Just the two of them. And off they went to inform Kunti of the good news. Arjuna, called out to Kunti, who was inside the house. We have something, a gift has been given to me. Oh, very nice. Share it amongst all your boys. And then when she saw who the gift was, it was a done deal. They had to follow what Kunti said, because that's what their mother said. They followed what their mother said. So Kunti married all 5 Pandavas. There was a big discussion about it, and it was resolved. Lord Shiva had already determined that this girl who would become Drupada's daughter would marry 5 men. That was already ordained by Lord Shiva, so it's okay. Although normally it's not okay. So they were married, all 5 brothers, and celebrated. At this time, Krishna, by the way, was also there. Krishna was there for the wedding, and Krishna was there because he had gone to attend the funeral of the Pandavas, but although he knew they weren't dead. And so he was there for the whole situation where Draupadi's hand was won by Arjuna. It's important because after the wedding and so many things, Krishna goes back to Dwarka. Krishna goes back to Dwarka. Why did Krishna go back to Dwarka? He received a message that his father-in-law was killed. Who was his father-in-law? Say it a little louder. Satyajit. Satyajit. Satyajit was the father of Satyabhama. And Satyajit was killed, so Krishna had to hurry back. But all these other things happened while that was going on over in Dwarka. Very lots of intrigue, huh? So Draupadi was the daughter of King Drupad. So the marriage took place at Drupad's kingdom. By the way, one of the things that's in this drawing is Krishna was one of the bards. As Yudhishthira and the Pandavas were in procession, Krishna volunteered, I want to sing the glories of Yudhishthira and the Pandavas. And it's mentioned elsewhere that that's what he did. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. So they were married, all 5 brothers married to Draupadi. And the marriage ceremony was at the capital of the Panchala kingdom, named Kampilya. And so they stayed there. The 5 brothers stayed there for some time, and after some time, Vidura went to pay them a visit. And there we see Vidura, there we see Krishna, we don't see Balaram, but there's the 5 brothers, we don't see Kunti, we don't see Draupadi, but they're there. And Vidura was encouraging them, now that it's known that you weren't killed in the house of lack, please come back to Hastinapur. Because that intrigue sent them off with some, series of other events. So they agreed, followed by the wise advice of Vidura, and they returned to Hastinapur. And when they returned to Hastinapur, there was some hostility in Hastinapur. But it was finally settled by Dhritarashtra that they would get half the kingdom. And the half the kingdom was this forested area called Kandavaprastha. Later became Indraprastha. And it was just a forested area. That was their kingdom. And Krishna requested Vishwakarma to construct this fantastic capital. So, meanwhile, in Kandavaprastha, the Pandavas were living together with their one wife, and the arrangement was that each husband would be with Draupadi for 1 month and the others would not interrupt, not interfere. Some difficulty came. The cows in that area were being attacked. Arjun, being a Kshatriya, had to go protect. He entered the same place where Yudhishthira and Draupadi were, got his weapons and went and repelled them. And it came back and said, I broke the word of our mother. I entered, and Yudhishthira said, you're doing your duty. It's okay. No, I'm going to go get purification, go to holy places for purification. So and in the course of those going to holy places for purification, guess what? He married a few ladies. That's what you do when you go into holy places, right? And one of those was Subhadra. And so he visited, the whole story, Subhadra. And when visiting Dwarka, by Krishna's kind assist, he married Subhadra, Krishna's sister, kind of against the will of Balaram, but that's what happened. And after repelling those warriors, actually Subhadra went back to Dwarka, they had a big marriage, and Krishna accompanied them, Arjun and Subhadra, going back to Kandavaprastha. And they were having some nice times together at Kandavaprastha. One day, lengthy description, Arjun suggested, let's go for a sojourn into the forest. They went together with their bow and arrows and this and that, and they had some adventures together. And in the course of their journeying, they sat down, and there was nice benches placed in the forest. And they sat down on a nice bench, and a very interesting event happened. Very interesting event happened. This is an image of Mayadanava, who approached them, but before Mayadanava approached them, something else happened. A Brahmana emerged from the forest. This is taken from Krishna Dharma's Ramayana Mahabharata. The Brahmana resembled an old sal tree with a complexion like molten gold. His beard and hair were bright yellow, and he shone like the morning sun. His 2 eyes were like lotus leaves, and his body was well formed and powerful. As the Brahmana approached Krishna and Arjuna, blazing like fire, they stood up and awaited his order. Who are you? I am Agni, the god of fire, and have taken this form of a Brahmana to beg charity from both of you. I'm begging charity from both of you because Brahma suggested that if I get your assistance, I'll be successful. Tell us, what is it? What charity would you like? In the course of so many yagyas, I've too much ghee, and I have this very bad situation of indigestion from too much ghee. So it was advised there's some herbs in this Khandava forest, and if I can take those herbs from the Khandava forest, then my indigestion will be gone. But every time I try with fire to take these herbs, Indra send torrents of rain, and I can't take the herbs. And time and again and time again. So why does Indra do that? Well, there's this person that lives in the forest also named Naga Takshaka. Naga Takshaka is protected by Indra. So every time I try to take the herbs by fire, Indra sends rain because he doesn't want Naga Takshaka to be harmed. So I went to Brahma, and Brahma said, go to Krishna and Arjuna, they'll help you. So I'm here in the form of a Brahmin, and making this request. So Arjuna said, you're a Brahmin, and I'm ready to do what you're requesting, but I'm going to need some facilities. Tell me what you need, I'll make the arrangement. So I need a certain quiver, and certain chariot, and a certain this and that. And then I can do the service, just as you're requesting. Agni, immediately, he requested his dear friend, Varuna, give Arjuna the celestial bow Gandiva, 2 inexhaustible quivers of arrows, and the chariot belonging to Soma, the moon god. The chariot was golden, with golden harnesses and celestial horses from the realm of the Gandharvas, and could travel anywhere within the worlds. Above the chariot flew a banner bearing the image of Hanuman. I remember having a discussion with somebody about the banner of Hanuman. And was it a banner of Hanuman or was it Hanuman? And then a little research, and Hanuman was making roars during the Kurukshetra battle. Sometimes would come down from the flag and be ready to do combat with Arjuna. So he wasn't just on the flag, he was with Arjuna. So that's how Arjuna got Gandiva, and his inexhaustible bows, and his chariot with Hanuman on the flag. The Gandiva bow appeared like a rainbow embedded with celestial gems, not an ordinary bow. Varuna also gave Krishna the club named Komadaki. That's where Komadaki comes from. Now, this is a pastime because this is one of Krishna's paraphernalia, so he doesn't like, once upon a time he didn't have, and then he had. It's a pastime. And Varuna had the opportunity to render the service on behalf of his dear friend, Agni. So Arjuna's ready. He's got his bow, he's got his quivers, he's got his chariot, he's got Hanuman on his flag, he's ready to go. So he told Agni, go ahead, start devouring all those herbs to get rid of your indigestion. And so the fire began. And as the fire began, Indra came. And when Indra came, Arjuna, who is the father of Arjuna? Indra, right?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Indra? Yeah. So there he's doing battle with Indra. Now how's that? He's doing a duty for a Brahmana, and he's fighting with his father. He didn't kill Indra, but he's, so many arrows that Indra couldn't penetrate. He couldn't enter into that, and he tried to stop. And so many things happened. And Indra was very, very pleased. Indra was very pleased with the power, the prowess of his son, Arjuna. So he came before Arjuna and requested, please take a benediction from me. You're a fantastic hero. And Arjuna made a request. He said, I would like to receive from you all the celestial weapons, fire and wind weapons in particular. Indra smiled. Surely I'll be glad to give you these weapons, but I'll give you these weapons later. When Shiva gives you his Pashupat weapon, I'll personally bring you to heaven. Wow. Personally bring you to heaven. And make as a gift all these wonderful weapons. But that's going to happen later. So next, escaping from the fire was Mayadanava. And when Mayadanava was escaping from the fire, Krishna sent his Sudarshan Chakra and then the fire of Agni. So there's Mayadanava. Over there in the lower left, that's the fire. Up in the sky, that's the demigods, including Indra. And there's the celestial chariot of Krishna and Arjuna. So Mayadanava, understanding Sudarshan Chakra, I'm finished. So what to do? He was smart enough to know, take shelter of Arjuna. Because if Arjuna gives his promise to protect me, then Krishna will stop the Sudarshan Chakra from chasing me. And Mayadanava was saved. He just requested, he just indicated to Krishna, please withdraw your Sudarshan Chakra. That was it. Sudarshan Chakra stopped. So Mayadanava is now feeling gratitude. That's our topic. There's a cognition, there's an affective element, and then a motivational element. He repeatedly requested Arjuna, I want to repay this favor that you've given to me. And repeatedly, Arjuna said, no. I don't do service to get something. No. But then Krishna, hearing this discussion, he said, I'll make a request. It's understood that you are really expert in mystical things. So my request is, build a splendid assembly hall for Yudhishthira. The like of this hall should not be found anywhere in the world. It should contain the features of celestial architecture and be impossible for anyone else to emulate. Consider it done, Mayadanava. There's ingredients, and in a very special place. I know exactly where to go. When I go there, I'll bring all the ingredients and we'll build this fantastic assembly hall for Yudhishthira. And when he went, he also brought back Deva Datta from the Mainaka lake, and that was given to Arjuna, and a club was given to Bhima. The club of Vrishaparva. The club of Vrishaparva, who was the king of the Danavas, equal to 100,000, 1 lakh of ordinary clubs. It's a gift for Bhima. Look out. So with that, Mayadanava starts his plan to build this. So Indraprastha has already been developed, but now it's an assembly hall. And Krishna goes back to Dwarka. He departs. And while Krishna is gone, when Krishna is going, Kunti is there, and Kunti expresses like this: "My dear Keshava, you are the supreme soul of this universe. You're always kindly disposed toward everyone, but you especially protect your devotees. From the day that Akrura arrived in Hastinapur, I knew that you were thinking of the welfare of myself and my sons. I am confident that whatever difficulties we may experience are arranged by Providence for our ultimate good." Nice, huh? Now, I used to think that Akrura was sent from Dwarka, but Akrura wasn't sent from Dwarka. Akrura was sent from Mathura. When Krishna returned after attending the school of Sandipani Muni, he was young, right? He was just 12 years old. And when he came back, he spent some time with Akrura, because he had promised. There's a whole chapter speaking with Akrura. There's a whole chapter of speaking in his interactions with Kubja. And during this time, he also has great concern about the residents of Vrindavan. So he sends Uddhava to Vrindavan. And he's hearing these rumors that the Pandavas are back and they're in trouble. There's intrigue going on in Hastinapur. So that's when he sent Akrura to go check out the situation. And Akrura spent a long time. How long? Something like a month? Maybe more. However long he stayed. He tried to persuade Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra heard him, couldn't follow. Too attached. So when Kunti, she's here saying much later, from that time, we were in difficulty and you sent Akrura. I knew, I was confident that whatever difficulties we may experience, they're arranged by Providence, meaning Krishna, for our ultimate good. So Krishna went back to Dwarka. A number of things happened while he was in Dwarka. Finally, the Celestial Assembly Hall was constructed, and there's a painting from Hridayananda Maharaj's effort to translate Mahabharata into English in readable fashion. This is the drawing of that's a pretty fancy assembly hall created by Mayadanava. And of course, one of the features was the pool of water that looked like land, and the land that looked like water, and Duryodhana fell in the pool of water. And at this time, Krishna had come with his queens from Dwarka. And they started laughing, and Krishna encouraged them, yes, laugh. Make fun of him. And it was purposeful, because he wanted to inspire Duryodhana to do what Duryodhana was wanting to do anyways. Wage war. Krishna wanted to rid the earth of demoniac kings, such personalities as Duryodhana being one of them. This is, of course, before the war. There's the two kingdoms, Indraprastha and Hastinapur. But Mayadanava He's from the Daitya clan. He was feeling grateful. He had enough savvy to know that if I take shelter of if I take shelter of Arjuna, then I'm protected from Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra. That's all it took. He just said, Sudarshan Chakra, stop. That was it. You get the favor of Krishna's dear devotee, Arjuna, and you have the favor of Krishna. Mayadhanva understood. And he kept insisting, I want to repay this favor, this kindness that's been done by you. I took shelter of you. You protected me. I want to do something for you. That's a nice lesson. Going back to something earlier from this expression of Kunti in Ekra Chakra, or the expression of Mainaka in Ramayana, this is the essence of Sanatana Dharma. It is something that good people do, but it's more than something that good people do, because the transcendental sense of repaying favor that has been done goes to the Supreme Person. Daivi Varnashram, or Daivi Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma is not circumstantially created or destroyed. Sanatana Dharma is service to Krishna, from whom everything that we have is received, including what appears to be misfortune is for our ultimate good. And earlier, when visiting, we were reading from Canto 1, Chapter 9. The next place I'm going, I plan to continue because it's a nice chapter. But understanding how misfortune or tribulation or hardship from the perspective of a devotee is kindness of Krishna, which is easier said than done. But it's an important lesson. It's an important lesson. It's in Mahabharata, it's throughout the Bhagavatam, and it's an important lesson for us. The difficulties, hardships of devotees is different. It may feel the same, but by transcendental consciousness, it's quite different. It's the gift of transcendence to see differently. The wheel of time moves, just as we were driving along, coming here, looking out the window, seeing different forms of life. Just like this morning, I was with the Chinese devotees. It was a really nice experience. I'll share this nice experience. Maybe some of you saw it. How much time do I have? I'll make a short story of a long story. Some years ago, there were 3 groups of devotees that got together and developed a very simple presentation on the Gita values. It was a GBC member, and some professors from Oxford University, and some devotees that teach Bhakti Shastri. They got together to come up with something that would do 2 things. One, persons who are not Ivory Tower, Oxford University folks could understand Bhagavad Gita simply. Because, at Oxford University, there's religious studies department, and they study Bhagavad Gita, but they study it, Oxford University style. So how to make it accessible to just everyday people. And another purpose was specifically how to take from the Bhagavad Gita those lessons that will help those who are leaders in our organization or outside of our organization to understand how to be leaders as per the lessons of Bhagavad Gita. Those were the two-pronged goals. And some time was spent, and they came up with 6, not that there's only 6, values in Bhagavad Gita. They're sequential, and a little paragraph with each one. And they refined the paragraph until they were happy. And I heard about it. I heard about it from a devotee named Adipurusha, who is a Bhakti Shastri teacher and more in Vrindavan, and he was visiting Ananda Vrindavan because they had the relationship of, they were in Vrindavan together. So he was teaching the 6 Gita principles. That's how I found out about it. I thought, this is really nice. It's a really good way to help new people understand Bhagavad Gita. And they spent, a lot of smart people spend a bunch of time putting together a real simple way of introducing people to Bhagavad Gita. So I developed a presentation on those 6. I presented it half a dozen times at different places. And then I got this little light went on that said, in China, they have this acronym, KCCC, Krishna Consciousness with Chinese Characteristics. So wouldn't it be nice if I could help the Chinese devotees understand how they can take Vedic knowledge and present it to the Chinese people in such a way it's relevant and relatable by adding the Chinese characteristics to the Gita values. So we fast forward, we had part 1 this morning. And I've been doing this so many times now. So the first one is Samadarshana. Samadarshana is equal vision, and the introduction is there's so many differences. Differences and differences and differences and differences and differences. How are we supposed to see Sama when there's so many differences? And as you see the soul. And the whole of Vedic wisdom is not just to see the soul, but to deliver the soul. So because I'm so immersed in this, it's a really nice experience. Really nice experience. There are a lot of people attending this morning class, which is their evening, Monday evening. We're so conditioned that we just see the external and we don't see what's going on. There's forms of life. There's ducks in that little stream as we were passing, and there was some wolf standing up on top of a hill somewhere, and there's birds flying. They're just different species of life going through the cycle of reincarnation with not even a hint of a clue what's going on. And there are people, some nice people, mode of goodness people, that don't have a clue about what's going on. They don't have a clue about what's going on. And what's the purpose of human life is to end that cycle of birth and death. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Dosha. No clue. And how fortunate are we? We have a clue. And how much do we have realization? Well, that's another question. And how much are we on the track of what that gift is meant to give us? I mean, it's not just, here's a nice little sharing. Before coming here, I was in Connecticut. And when I was in Connecticut, there's a neighbor of the family where I was staying. They're a nice couple. One child is in medical school, another child is in high school, and really nice couple. And they came to, we wanted to give them a gift, Bhagavad Gita, and the man was saying that his father, when he was 59, Tamil speaking, I assume Brahmin. When he was 59, he retired. And from that day, when he retired, until he died when he was 80, he would rise at such and such hour in the morning, take his bath, chant Vishnu Sahasranam, and read Srimad Bhagavatam, and chant Ram and Krishna all day long. I mean, exactly the same instruction that Lord Chaitanya gave to Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Constantly read and recite Srimad Bhagavatam, and constantly chant the holy name. You can't do one or the other. You can't constantly do both. And he said his father, up to the last 20 hours of his life, he was just chanting Ram and Krishna's name. I didn't ask what mantra, but Ram and Krishna's name. He would take some buttermilk every now and then until he left his body. He left his body saying Krishna's name. It's like, I'm looking at this man going, wow. And then I didn't say it because I was in this wow mood, plus I also didn't want to be in any way disrespectful, but I was thinking, Srila Prabhupada went to Vrindavan not to die. He went to Vrindavan to prepare Srimad Bhagavatam to fulfill the order of his spiritual master to bring Krishna consciousness to all of us. How elevated was Prabhupada? What sacrifices did he undergo? What was his consciousness as he was doing all of the things that he was doing for us? And what are we, gosh. So it's nice to meet this nice man. No diminishing what this, I said, may that be what will happen to me when I'm ready to leave this world, that I'm constantly chanting Ram and Krishna's name. I mean, I was in awe of this, this man who had a father like that. Yeah, how fortunate was this man? And his children are also fortunate. But that culture is being lost, and even beyond, how to revive that culture? It's what Prabhupada did. And why did Prabhupada do what Prabhupada did? Because he was given something by his spiritual master. And he was moved, although it was mission impossible. He was moved. And he was always moving us. Go forward. Even if nobody comes, even if there's no result, you're pleasing Krishna, go forward. He pushed us. Inspired us, you could say pushed us, he inspired us, he lifted us to the position of receiving what he had received. And, for the whole world was his audience. What a great personality. And we've had somehow been on the receiving end of that good fortune of that great personality. We have to do something. We have to do something. And when is enough? When have we done enough? It's never enough. And qualitatively or quantitatively. Receive that mercy and distribute that mercy as our mission in life. That's on this topic of gratitude. And the one yesterday, Sunday, was humility precedes gratitude. So let's see if there's some discussion on this nice topic. You got a lot of people in your house here. Yeah. We have a microphone. It's not portable, and the wire's all tangled. But if you'd like to say something, we'll see if the microphone can reach where you are. Yes? Was that you're volunteering to speak something? Okay, over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you were saying we've been on the receiving end so far, and when we want to be on the giving end of the gift we've received, and it definitely seems like mission impossible sometimes. Even if the scale is not too large, in our capacity it feels like mission impossible. So is it wise to take a first step anyway? Or
Yeah. That was quick.
Or is it better to wait like a year,
No.
2 years?
No. Taking from Srila Prabhupada on this, he would point to Malati's daughter Saraswati. By the way, Saraswati is still around. She's not the same little Saraswati she was when she was little. But she would go to people, tug on their sleeve, little girl, do you know who is Krishna? No, who is Krishna? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they would smile, because words that come from a little child, everybody likes. So you don't have to be a little child. You can be however old you are, and whatever you have to say that you appreciate. And it's not imitation. It's a stage where one, just like a child learns to speak. How does a child learn to speak? They hear their parents speaking, and they have vocal cords, and they repeat those sounds, and they make their first word, whatever their first word is. I know some parents say the child's first word was Prabhupada. So they learn how to make a sound. So, and then the parents go, "Oh, they made a sound." So it doesn't have to be, realized. It doesn't have to be something special. Whatever it is that you have heard and you have some appreciation and have faith in, you say that. You can, as a preamble, I haven't realized all these things, but this much I have faith in. I mean, you can have the preamble or not. Don't imitate, but follow. And the simplicity of your words will be part of the beauty of the words, even if you haven't had such great realizations. It's pleasing to Krishna. That's what's important. And when Krishna is pleased, you're in good position. Yes? Yes?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the presentation, Maharaj. I think the one thing that really stood out to me were the paintings. I really loved the paintings. They were so artistic and beautiful. I don't know who did them, but they're really talented. And one painting that stood out to me is like the half snake god. I don't know. I don't know what the god actually. Then this might sound like a big question, but like, what's the name of it? Takshak's eternal purpose in regards to Krishna's pastimes.
What's the question? What you want to know? What a particular word means?
No, what is Takshak's eternal purpose? Like, why was like?
What is the role of Takshak?
Yeah.
So what was his role? Mm-hmm. Oh, he was a friend. And Indra, seeing him as a friend, he was giving him protection. That's all. There's not a lot of information about what was that friendship like. Maybe somebody, that Mahabharata buff or scholar will know the answer to that. My understanding is not so deep. It's just there was a friendship. And because of that friendship, Indra was protecting him. And Indra knew that was where he was residing. So when there was a fire, he put the fire out to protect his friend. No, what was the nature of that friendship? I don't know. Anybody here know?
Same snake who bites Parikshit Maharaj.
Huh?
He's the same snake who bites Parikshit Maharaj.
No, that's not the same. That's not the same. It's not the same. Not the same. Your question? That's it? Okay. Yes, you have something? You got to come forward a little bit if it's okay.
Maharaj, all through our childhood and here till now, we are actually understanding Sanatana Dharma. The word, it is learned from all of you and also many elderly people. Exactly what is this Sanatana Dharma? The elders say something, we just follow it. Or what exactly it constitutes of actually Sanatana Dharma?
I think you know, but I'll say it
Okay.
so that you're happy. Sanatana, of course, means eternal. And Dharma has a conventional and has a more literal meaning. The literal meaning is the characteristic. Correct? This is Prabhupada's Dharma, like, you've heard this, I'm sure you've heard this. The Dharma of sugar is sweet. The Dharma of chili is pungent. The Dharma is water is liquid. The Dharma of the living entity is service. Sanatana Dharma is the eternal service of the living entity. And what is that eternal service of living entity? If it's not properly reposed, it's service to Maya. And if it is properly reposed, it's service to the Supreme. Eternally. Sanatana Dharma. The characteristic of the living entity is situated in eternality. That's what Sanatana Dharma is. And in eternality is in relation to the Supreme Eternal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Because service requires person. Who is serving and one who is being served. And the medium of service. That's Sanatana Dharma. That's exactly what it means. Now, it has its manifestations, but the essence is the essence of all those manifestations. Prabhupada would say, everyone is serving Krishna. This is George Harrison. Some people know it, some people don't know it. Everyone is serving Krishna. Sanatana Dharma is the essence of a living entity. The characteristic, a very specific word that Prabhupada would repeat many times, characteristic. The characteristic of the soul. The soul is eternal. There's three meanings of Sanatana. There's the Dham, the living entity, and the Supreme. One of the names in Scripture for Krishna is Sanatana. But depending on context, it has different meanings. And they're all of the same Sanatana nature. The soul, the living entity, and the abode of the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord, Sanatana. It's one of his names. Is that all right? Yeah, you have a follow-up, I can tell. Oh, okay. Well,
Many questions.
okay, that's okay.
It's to Krishna. That's what I understood. Sanatana means.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for your nice talk.
You got to hold the microphone closer.
Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
It's not a multi-directional. It's unidirectional. Just hold it like it's an ice cream cone.
Sir, I never spoke it. Sorry. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Oh, that's
Thank
better.
you for your nice class. And I have one question. What
Don't
is
forget to hold it straight.
What is the meaning of Daivi Varnashrama Dharma?
What's the meaning of Daivi
Daivi Varnashrama
Varnashram
Dharma.
Dharma? Well, Dharma, you know, Dharma means characteristic. Then that there's two adjectives, Varna and Ashram, and that's, you know, the occupation and their social situation, the ashram. And then Daivi means the object. The objective of that characteristic is the Supreme. Let's go this way. There's Varnashram that's not focused on the Supreme. And there's Daivi Varnashram that is focused on the Supreme. What's Varnashram that's not focused upon the Supreme? It's persons that have a duty, and they render their duty without the purpose of pleasing the Supreme. That's Varnashram. And then Daivi Varnashram is they do their duty for the purpose and pleasure of the Supreme. Clear?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And all the way in the back. Come forward a little bit.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisance, all Krishna Prabhupada. Maharaj, my question is related to the statement you made that Arjuna said that I don't expect anything for service.
Yeah.
Unconditional service. And we understand this unconditional, unmotivated, uninterrupted.
Yeah.
That's what we should
That's
aspire for.
Bhagavatam, yeah.
Correct. So, Maharaj, especially in the lives of Grasti, we have, if we can visualize a Venn diagram, one is the professional, the other is the personal, and the other is the spiritual.
Okay.
And we have these different responsibilities.
Yes, we do.
And we are in the middle.
Yeah.
Person is in the middle.
Got it.
And sometimes these responsibilities are pulling us in each direction.
I've experienced it.
Yeah.
And you probably, as a grahasta, have experienced it more.
Yeah. So Maharaj, what happens is that, let's talk about some service in the temple. And whenever that tends to have a conflict with either the personal or the professional, we tend to, at least I tend to say that, okay, I'm as it is doing enough for the temple. I'm already chanting so many rounds, I'm doing this. I make an inventory of all the sevas that I'm doing. And it tends to be okay. And in one sense, it feels, hypocritical to the instruction of it should be unconditional, unmotivated, uninterrupted. So what is it that people like me can do, Maharaj, so that Venn diagram, instead of being three circles, can just come aligned into one? And then, everything becomes an act of devotional service.
Sri Brahma Samhita, text 63.
Service. The instruction of it should be unconditional.
Sri Brahma Samhita, text 63.
Feels, hypocritical
It
to the
speaks
instruction of it should.
Gona,
And in
Dharma.
one sense, it feels,
Here's
and
the word
in so
Dharma
many
again.
rounds I'm doing, it's to
Gona,
be okay.
Dharma.
And in one sense, it
And,
feels,
and that's secondary duties. Or, supportive duties. You probably, as a grahasta, the primary duty. That's the, got it. Svarup Lakshana, the primary characteristic is, so how you make those into one is,
doing this.
in that purport,
should be
Bhakti
feels,
Siddhanta, following Bhakti
of Christ.
Vinod Thakur, describes life is made up of three areas.
Professional
And each of those describes life is made up of three areas, are connected to the primary activities of Bhakti, then they're as elevating as the primary activities of Bhakti. So then it becomes time management. I call it blocks of time. But all three of those areas have one purpose. Unity in diversity. So then it's time management. And then you have to make decisions. Each of us make decisions about managing time. Now, I know some people, In fact, I just had some discussion with somebody that they don't like time management. They like just to have an assignment and check the box, and somehow it gets done. I said, that's chaos. And you'll be unhappy, and others will be unhappy. But you'll be unhappy. You won't be happy. Time management is necessary. Then you prioritize according to different considerations, and it may fluctuate as time passes, etc., etc. But how to make it one was your question, and that's the Swarup Lakshana. When the Swarup Lakshana is there, the alignment is there. And that's bhakti. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. That's bhakti. The purpose of all those things is one thing. Yes.
Maharaj, thank you so much for today's class. My question is even in the previous visit that you had come.
Even which?
In the
Speak
previous
slowly.
In the previous visit, you were speaking about currency of relationships. And even the answer to this Prabhu's question, everything actually comes down to this one point that Krishna is central, pleasing Krishna is central.
Yes.
And in some of your previous classes also you've said that to please Krishna, ultimately the intelligence should be given by Krishna himself. Dadami Buddhi Yogam, that verse that you always say.
Yes.
So even when we are trying to please Krishna and trying our best to do it, still we don't get complete indication as to are we really pleasing him, or what should we do to really please him. So
I'm not clear what you're asking. You probably are clear, but I'm not.
we are trying our best to please Krishna,
But
we don't get the complete picture as to what he really wants us to do.
well,
to please
okay,
him.
keep going.
But our intelligence is clouded because
That's
it's
okay.
conditioned.
To keep going, let's say it differently. As best as you offer your heart with sincerity, as best you can, and your main mission while doing that is, let my heart become pure, so that when the heart becomes pure, then I'll have I'll be more of a blank slate where Krishna can write on me whatever he wants. Until that purity comes, we're scripted with our conditioning. We see and we feel and we do according to our conditioning. And that's not what Krishna wants, but we have to act according to our nature, and so we do what we... So strive for the purity so that the intelligence will come. There's a young Western person that came to the program Sunday evening at the Bergen place. And he really knew, and he wants to know, I'm doing this and doing that, but I don't know what my, my real higher purpose is. What should I do? So it's just strive for purity, follow those practices that you have, because I know which practices he's doing. You have the right path, you have the right purposes. Keep going for purity, and as that purity comes, then the capacity to understand what Krishna wants of you, the signal will come through. Krishna is ready, we're not. So make the heart more pure. So that indication of, and become familiar with Scripture, because when you read Scripture, some lights will start going on. And then there's personalities within those Scriptures that you seem to resonate with more. That tells you something about you, and it tells something about what Krishna is in giving you encouragement in. Not impetuously or immaturely, but slowly, things start to emerge. Where there wasn't clarity, some clarity starts to emerge. And you go there. Don't be in a rush.
Sure, Maharaj.
And I'm not just speaking about you, I'm thinking of a number of other people. They want to, hurry up, and if the ground is not covered carefully in the preliminary stages, and one is eager to go to a higher stage, when one is trying to do service in that higher stage, it'll be faulty. It'll collapse, unless the foundation is strong. So continue to be enthusiastic and continue to be patient. Don't become complacent, but be patient while being enthusiastic to have that clarity. But purity is the prerequisite. And the means for purity is given. We'll continue.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Anything up here in the balcony seats?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I think I have the same question on the similar lines.
Can you speak right into the microphone? Thank you.
We always hear devotees doing services, like they are engaged in temple services according to their talent, and we see that so many of hidden talents come out, and they are engaged in Krishna service. Like some people do art, cakes, cooking. But what about others who have no strong talents? That should we just wait, or is it I'm not trying to, but this is a question that I always think about myself. What to do when we don't have any such talents?
Wash pots.
Okay, yeah, that's a good thing.
You know what I mean? Doesn't matter. Just because you want to, so do something. And I'm not being facetious. I know some highly educated people that's their favorite thing. They really look forward to going to the temple on Sunday and just in the pot room because it makes the heart soft. And they know that when I get to know the person a little bit more, they'd reveal, my nature is I'm proud. And it's good for me just to go in that pot room and clean pots. Because I know it's just for Krishna. And it's useful, it's appreciated. Anyway, so it doesn't have to have some special talent. Pick up the garbage. Whatever it is. Something that's not talent specific. Find out something. Some people are just service minded. You find that you don't even have to be asked. They just find something and they do that something because they're service minded. So that's how we do with people that don't exhibit some particular talent. You just ask them, here's a list of 16 things. What would you like to do? And if they say, anything, okay, take these 3. Okay. All right. Online?
Yeah, similar question what Mataji asked. This is from Apurvanand Mataji, I think. So, Hare Krishna Maharaj, we know that consciousness gets transferred. So, should we instead do preaching if we are dwelling in false ego consciousness?
Well, we should do both. We should do preaching and be vigilant for the false ego consciousness. We should do both.
Or should we stick to giving as it is doable things like distributing books?
Yeah, but that can be in false ego too. It doesn't have to be. You have to be humble to distribute books. You have to be an instrument. But some people, anyway, do both. That either or. Do both. Anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's only one question.
Okay, thank you.
One more question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, the topic is on the topic that you spoke about, gratitude.
The topic is what?
The question is about the topic of today, that's
The
gratitude.
topic of what?
Today's topic, gratitude.
Gratitude, okay.
When we receive something, we feel, and then we are expressing it. There are certain people who use and they just discard you. So how do you deal with such people?
You smile. That's their issues are not your issues. Your responsibility is to Krishna. You don't have to be at the steering wheel of their issues. You smile. Then you'll wish them well. And think of ways that you can, be in some service if they are so inclined to become free from that shortcoming. And, even recognize that it's a shortcoming, what to speak of becoming free from it. But, you smile. You smile inside and you can smile outside. No problem. And the process of bhakti is going to help that person. Not necessarily you will be the instrument, but Krishna may help that person in Krishna's own way. Something that I learned from Burijan was very valuable. Without there's some anecdotal story, but the lesson was there's some things that are just between Krishna and his devotee. So don't do Krishna's business. Let Krishna do Krishna's business. You do your service. Because if the person is engaged in Krishna's service, Krishna will help them. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. No, I'm just going to end because it'll keep going. Somewhere here there's like 16 wheelbarrows full of